Good morning. I'm so excited to be here with Mr. Tshering Wangchuk, the author of 1,000 Footprints, which just came out in October and is available in most bookstores in Thimphu and also in Paro, I think.
Yes, and you can buy it on Booknese online.
Okay, yes. Booknese, which is on Facebook and then also has its own website. So this is our 5th episode of Digital Salon. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I thought I would start by introducing you a little bit and then talking about the book. Actually, Mr. Tshering Wangchuk is well known, but you might not know his face because he's been behind the scenes in a lot of different Bhutanese media outlets, including being one of the founders of Business Bhutan, where actually he began writing a lot of the stories that landed up here in the book. And then later he was the CEO of Bhutan Broadcasting Service, including during the time that we were in lockdown, our first 20-day lockdown. So I think that time you were living in the office.
Yes.
But now Mr. Tshering Wangchuk is at STCBL, so no longer as involved in
the
media or in writing, which is maybe one of the reasons that it's really good that this book came out. So this book is a very interesting book because it's small, it looks really small, but there are 51 different stories in it. And many of the stories are his personal recollections of his childhood, his days in Sherapsi, and then the early days at work. And he's described a lot of the stories as bite-sized. So
really small size.
Really short. So I thought I would start by asking you to read one of the stories to maybe give people a flavor of it. So I thought maybe you could read Chasing a Dream.
The story is titled Chasing a Dream and it's from 1982. When I was maybe in grade standard 4 or 5.
Okay.
And that talks about kite flying, which used to be one of our favorite pastimes, but which we don't see anymore.
Yes.
So actually I wrote it almost as an obituary to kite flying because we don't see kites anymore. So I thought it would be interesting for the younger generation to know how life had been and how the area along that Maimat area had been a wide open space and we could run for hundreds of meters without having to worry about the cars crossing or maybe the kite string colliding with the electric poles or something. So this is actually one of my favorites and one of the pieces, one of my first pieces actually.
Okay.
So Chasing a Dream, that is in Thimphu, 1982. Unlike in Khalid Hosseini's novel, The Kite Runner, we did not have runners when kite flying was a local craze. We were all flyers who wanted to explore the deep blue sky. In a group where each thought the sky was literally the limit and each believed that he was a star, no one wanted to be a sidekick. We made our own kites. Some flew high and some never left the ground. The materials we used were pages from old newspapers and magazines, twigs broken off from hard brooms, glues and rolls of twine coiled around a piece of rubber stick or a small can. We spent every night either making new kites or repairing broken ones. Even the parents got involved in fixing and designing the kites and often competed with the adults next door. I was certain all boys dreamed, as I did, of exploring the high skies through the eyes drawn on my kite, soaring higher than all others and being the envy of playmates. At night, I stared into the blank darkness of the ceiling, but saw houses, rivers and valleys as I imagined would be seen from a kite. Come morning, I prayed for a rainless day and the welcoming flow of a gentle breeze. Breakfast was just a routine necessity, rarely enjoyed or finished before I hurried outdoors. Thimphu was a town with many open spaces then. Fewer electrical and telephone wires crisscrossed the valley, and one could run for miles. The adults did not mind seeing the neighborhood children scurrying about and chattering all day long. Kite flying was a craze for adults and children alike, but as all good things must end, kite flying too vanished. As the capital city grew, the forests receded further up the mountain and buildings filled open spaces. Today one can hardly see kites or kite flyers. How empty and sad muses a kite-crazed boy, now a man, as he looks up to see the sky clear and blue without a prancing kite in sight. He brushes his hair back in the gentle breeze, gets into his small car and drives to work. His days of kite flying were not dramatic, but he remembers running and stumbling a lot, especially when his kite fell to the ground, and returning home for the night exhausted and ragged. He drives on nonchalantly to his office, knowing he will not see children chasing kites on the road. He no longer dreams of soaring high up among the clouds and looking down on houses, rivers and valleys. He has done that many times from a plane. Man has conquered the skies and ended the wild imaginings of a boy. Hope that was okay.
No, that was really beautiful. And I think in some ways this particular story kind of captures the flavor of the book, which is very much your personal recollections, but really also about a changing
A lot
Bhutan.
of nostalgia in there, yes.
Yeah.
So basically when I look at the scene just now, the life just now, it actually makes me think a lot on the past, how it had been, how life had been without mobile phone, telephone, television, where we had to ingeniously create our own, ways to pass time. So kite flying was one of the things we did, and it was almost like a teamwork. And even I was saying the parents were involved because they wanted to see their children have the best of kites, with what was possible. No? So we used a lot of those broomsticks and papers, newspaper papers. So those are the days.
Yeah, and this particular story comes from the section that's about your childhood. There's quite a lot on your childhood, and I think one of the things that really struck me from your childhood part was how much it's about food and about stealing food and about wanting food. So I don't know whether that was a special quality of your childhood.
Actually, even within the family, I was known, even as a boy, I was known to eat a lot. And someone who was fond of food, maybe not for quality, but more in terms of quantity. So I think a lot of things, yes. Today when I look at my children, they come down for breakfast, they say, okay, I want to eat cornflakes, or maybe some would say, I want to eat oat, or one would say, I want to have my egg fried rice. But when we were children, I think we never had that option. We were more into, we knew food was there, food was enough, but it was always about, will I get enough to eat? Sometimes there's a less quantity of what was on the table, and it was always like, will I get to eat enough? And that was the same in school and also in college. When we went for breakfast, sometimes it was like puri and potatoes, and we would get about 3 pieces. Will that be enough? Should I ask the captain to give me a single, another piece? So that was how life had been until college. So it was more about, I think I never knew that I wrote a lot on food, but now that you mentioned it, a lot of things on food. So that must have been one aspect of my life. I think I enjoyed food a lot.
And I think the other thing that's very clear, even starting from the childhood, is that there's a lot of wit and humor, and a lot of the stories you tell are quite funny. And at one point you compare yourself to Tom Sawyer and say, indeed my life has been like Tom Sawyer's, filled with innocent pranks and mischief. So I don't know, is that a particular feature of your childhood, or is that sort of your storytelling technique to focus on the humor?
No, okay. Even in Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer, the stories, they don't mention about the, it was written so far back in time that they did not have like mobile phones, television, you know? And even my childhood, those things were not there. So there were very limited options to actually how to engage yourself in the free time. And we used to have a lot of free time, and we used to do a lot of things. We used to be either, parents used to tell us when I was in Pune High School, don't go to the river. Because it's quite, there are octopuses in there.
Dangerous,
But the moment they have left, we are by the river, either catching fish, or we're in the forest looking for pomegranates or guava, which was quite plentiful in Punakha those days. And there were many other ways to engage yourself, and most of the times just to actually enjoy the game, or maybe to actually get past the senior boys, we had to be mischievous. We couldn't always obey the orders of the teachers, the rules of the teachers or the parents. And we were left to ourselves. We had like days, whole day away from the prying eyes of the teachers. So you could do whatever we wanted. But those were all innocent pranks. And those, at that time those were like acceptable.
Yeah.
But some things may not be acceptable now, with a lot of social issues.
Yeah.
No? But those days, I think most of the things were acceptable,
Yeah.
and we enjoyed those.
Yeah.
And that was how
Yeah.
we kept ourselves busy.
Yeah. And then another part of your book where sort of the mischief continues is your time in Cherepsi.
Okay.
I think you graduated 1993.
93, yeah.
And it seems like it had a really big impact on your imagination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I was that kind of a student who couldn't concentrate for even 5 minutes.
Okay.
The moment the lecture started, then my mind would be actually out of the window.
Yeah.
Out. It will be away from the class, and I had to actually pinch myself to keep myself focused.
Yeah.
And then I would see a lot of things. Actually, I would say that my own imaginings of any incident would be more.
Yeah.
It will be more colorful. There will be a little bit of humor, satire. Even sometimes it would be quite dark humor.
Yeah.
But it will always be humorous.
Yeah.
I would see the lighter side of life.
Yeah.
And even the way I actually respond when I converse with my friends, they would say, "Oh, we never thought of that. You always have some humorous side to you." So that was, I think, that is in it, and that is what is actually reflected in the book also. And I tried, when I think of a humorous piece, I try to put a lot of humor in that. And if I write a kind of a melancholy piece, then I try to put a lot of melancholy in that.
And what I noticed in the Cherepsi piece, and maybe this is partially because of the time that you were there, is you don't mention a lot of names. So there's a lot of pranks you get up to, a lot of sort of naughty things, and then there are no names. Is that intentional too?
Oh, that's intentional. Actually, a lot of my friends are involved in all the pranks, and like me, all mostly innocent pranks, or maybe because it was what the time demanded. But when I talk to my friends, they're saying, "Oh, don't put our name. You can write the story." But and a lot of my friends now holding important position in the government. Some in politics, some as holding even as high as secretary. I mean, in the civil service. Of course, they enjoy reading it because for them also it's nostalgic. But I think some may it's okay with some. To mention the name, but I thought few would not actually enjoy that, so I kept all out
names,
except one personality who passed away, and but he's one of the main characters in the book.
Yes, he's the master. What do you call the master prank?
Resident master prank.
Definitely sort of at the heart of any naughty behavior. The other thing I noticed as someone who teaches college students is there's not much mention about classroom or learning, formal learning. I think most of, even though that's a major chunk of your book, most of the stories happen outside of the classroom.
Yes,
intentional.
Actually, in the front page, I said you learn a lot in the classroom, but you learn much more outside. So, I think it was the need of the time that you concentrate a lot of things outside the classroom, and you pay less attention. Because life also I think was easier that time, because when you are studying, you actually just think of, yes, I'll get a job, and I'll make it into the civil service. That was actually the first priority. And then if I don't make it, then maybe I can join the military, or maybe anywhere in the corporate. So we didn't actually pay much attention. I mean, it's not just I'm not talking for everyone, but for myself, actually I thought I did learn a lot in the classroom. I was doing quite well in the exams, but most portions of my time was actually outside. So that was where I think I learned a lot, especially with regard to maybe friendship, relationships. So those are things that taught me a lot, I think.
The other thing that the other thing I wanted to ask is, Cherepsi is still a very important educational institution in Bhutan. Have you been back since your college days?
I graduated in 1993. And the first time I returned to Cherepsi after that was when I went with two tourists. In maybe about 13 years later, 1990. No, so that will be 2006. So I was there recently in October actually. When I was on a tour to Cherepsi. So I would say I've been about 3-4 times.
Yeah. Has it changed? Is it still like the Sherpsi in your book?
Actually, it has changed a lot.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
of course, the gate at the entrance
That's
gate
still
is
the
still the
same,
same, and you think it will still be the same.
Yeah.
But once you enter, there's been a lot of development.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of new buildings,
Yeah.
concrete buildings have come up, and not only that, but I think the whole, actually, the atmosphere inside the college has changed. I feel,
Yeah.
because in our time, when you wait outside the gate,
Yeah.
and a parcel comes,
Yeah.
and the person just has to say the nickname. Oh, do you know this person?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There'll be
Yeah.
someone to
Yeah.
take it. But now, I think we had only 500 students
Yeah.
then, but now I heard like 1,700 students, and they do not seem to know each other.
Yeah.
Even few students do not seem to know the lecturers even,
Oh, yeah.
if they are not in the,
In the
they're
same class,
in
yeah.
the same class. So I feel that there's a little bit of a disconnect between the students themselves, also between the faculty and the students, and that maybe possibly because there's the number has increased. But not only that, I think now there's a little bit more focus on performance.
Yeah.
So a lot of students seems to be studying quite seriously.
Yeah.
And even their time, I heard now, sometimes the classes go on till 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think it's something we cannot avoid, I think.
Is there anything that stayed the same though?
Yeah, the gate stayed the same.
Yeah.
The clock tower is still there.
Yeah.
And the old structures are still there.
Yeah.
The roads and all, as I remember them,
Yeah.
the basketball court,
Yeah.
but there's been other changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how this book came to be. Was it partially to capture these institutions like Sherpsi that are changing, or how did you come to start writing these stories?
Actually, I never thought that I'd publish a book when I started writing.
Yeah.
I never wrote anything after I graduated for the next 16 years.
Yeah.
So that was like, I graduated in 1993. So that would be till 2009.
Yeah.
I only wrote maybe official letters or maybe few reports.
Yeah.
But then I resigned from Bhutan Post, and then I was the co-founding CEO of Business Bhutan.
Yeah.
So when we were about to start the newspaper, the senior editor came to me and said, "Sir, can you write a short column?
Yeah.
We'll give you space
Yeah.
at the back,
Yeah.
which is the second most important page."
After the front page.
Yeah, and it will be in color.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I've never written anything, but they said, you have this sense of humor, you have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I think they must have noticed that.
Yeah.
So I said, how much should I write? You can write in 350 to 400 words.
That's very
so
little.
that's very little,
Yeah.
yeah. So I said, okay. Then it appeared in the first issue
Yeah.
itself, and then I continued writing.
Yeah.
And then every week that would be one of my responsibilities,
Yeah.
to write a short
Yeah.
piece for the newspaper. And I did that till I left Business Bhutan.
Yeah.
And I must have written more than 50 to 60.
And some of those made their way into the book.
Yes,
eventually.
yes. And it was only like in my final last year with BBS that I actually decided that I'll write a book, publish this, because
that's very recent actually.
yes, it's like 2019.
Okay.
So that was the time when I started. It was during the COVID actually,
Okay.
when we went to the first lockdown, that I started to post my writings on my Facebook wall.
Oh, okay.
Just to entertain my friends.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people started messaging me saying, don't just keep them on the Facebook, publish a book. You have
Okay.
enough
Yeah,
material.
yeah.
They're interesting stories to read. And I checked the archive, and I had actually about 75 pieces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 75 pieces. And then I had to first screen out
Yeah.
from the list, because some stories I knew wouldn't make it into the book
Okay.
because of certain reasons. Like some stories are so much concentrated on a smaller circle of friends that the wider audience wouldn't actually understand the
Yeah.
humor or the
context.
context.
Yeah.
So I had to screen them out, and I've left them actually for the future.
Okay.
So then finally, when my editor and I talked, then we actually came up, shortlisted the whole thing to 51 stories.
Okay.
So 51 stories is actually nothing,
Yeah.
not for any other reason. Not
Yeah.
that I'm
Not a special
not
number.
that I'm becoming 51 in this Jan.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh,
On
that's very exciting.
January 21st, I'll be 51.
Oh, so this is perfect then, this
Actually,
book.
yeah.
I wanted to ask about the title of the book, which is 1,000 Footprints. And I know that one of the the pieces in your fourth part, which is an obituary to traditional Bhutanese architecture, particularly walls, a little
Yes.
bit like the ones
Yes.
here. I wanted to ask why you picked this as your title and what sort of it tells us about the collection.
Actually, I was a little bit undecided, and I was thinking of 3-4 other titles.
Okay.
So then I discussed that with my editor, Kungati Doji.
Yeah. Also known as Soup.
Yeah,
Like
also
everyone
known
knows
as
him
Soup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was the editor
Yeah.
I chose, and then he was saying that wall of 1,000 footprints. He's
Yeah.
saying it gives him some ideas. He's saying when you're building the wall,
Yeah.
it's just to a person from outside,
Yeah.
it would just look like a wall.
Yes. Yeah.
But for the people who built it, he was saying how many footprints?
It's-
Yeah,
went
that
into
would
the
be
building,
that
yeah.
would have gone into the building
Yeah.
of the wall layer by layer.
Yeah.
So I think 1,000 footprints would be nice. Plus, it's these are mostly like memoirs.
Yes.
So I think footprints actually relates more to
Yeah.
memoir. So that was then I said okay. I didn't want. I said that sounds absolutely fine with
Yeah.
me. So that
Yeah.
was how we went.
Yeah.
And actually, another friend now who is distributing the book
Yeah.
online, Pasu.
Yes.
He
of-
was
of
also
the Booknese,
yeah.
no?
He was also saying the same thing.
Yeah.
He said he never thought that in a wall there will be so
Yeah.
many footprints.
Yeah.
So 1,000 footprints. seems
But at the
very apt.
same time, it also tells us a little bit about the change in Bhutan because we don't build that way anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
So, is it also meant to capture that sense of
Actually,
like longing for?
Yeah, yes. Actually, like you were saying, it is an obituary to the way we made walls in the past. Of course, few remote corners also we still see that.
Yeah.
And then there's the charm of building that wall.
Yeah.
The women singing,
Yeah.
the men and women teasing each other.
Yeah.
And as I've said in the book, sometimes the walls, I heard of those big zongs
Yeah.
or other bigger construction where the walls couldn't be made by a carpenter that, no,
Yeah.
it took generations, few more, carpenters to make that, and how a love affair was
Yeah.
developed in that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a romantic side to those kind
Yeah,
of walls. no?
Yeah.
And it was not always, the wall never looked perfectly
Yeah,
straight,
yeah.
but somehow they withstood
Yeah, they're strong.
they're very strong, standing hundreds of years
Yeah.
old. So I actually like that aspect of the
Yeah.
romance in it, and even that it's a work of art.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it's definitely a work of art.
Yeah.
And now we hear all these metals, no?
Yes.
A lot of
Yeah.
noise of the machine, and I think in contrast with the songs that were sung
Yeah,
when you're
yeah.
making those traditional
Yeah.
walls, I thought that maybe the younger children should know that.
Yeah.
And that was why I enjoyed writing this.
One of the things that you were saying is that a lot of younger people have been reading your book.
Yes.
That even primary school students have
Yes.
been reading and enjoying the book. And I think what I was struck when I read it is that your style is very, I think it's almost like more from the journalism side, that very simple, clear structure of
Oh.
sentences. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you write and.
Actually, I just start writing when I get an idea, and normally it would be the last sentence or the ending.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, this is how, basically how my story is going to end. So I start actually backwards.
Yeah, from
So
the end
yeah,
to the
from the
beginning.
end. So that's
Yeah.
why most of the stories always have a punchline.
Yeah, there's a
or
very
there's a
crisp-
twist.
yeah.
There's a twist in
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
because that's how I want the story to end.
Yeah.
And normally I start by actually trying to lead the readers away from the
So that it's a surprise.
yeah, there's a surprise at the end.
Yeah.
And this short stories, I would say, normally takes me about 15 minutes to write.
Yeah.
And I would just start typing on my phone when I get the
Okay,
idea.
okay.
And I would do it like when I'm waiting for a doctor in the hospital, or when I'm waiting for my friends to come
Yeah.
for dinner. When I get it, I just start typing.
yeah.
And I don't like to use very high sounding words.
Yeah.
I prefer to keep very simple, because I want both the young children and the elderly
Yeah,
lot to read
yeah,
my book.
yeah.
And I'm also not very comfortable using those words, because whenever I read something where the writer has written a lot of such high sounding words, I have to go refer the dictionary.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it. And sometimes they don't convey what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I tried, and because I was writing those columns,
Yeah.
I had to be very careful with the length of my sentences,
Yes,
because
yeah.
I had only like
Yeah.
350 to 400 words.
Yeah.
And I like to use simple words
Yeah.
to make powerful sentences
Yeah, yeah.
in the most simplest form, and that's why I don't like to use too many of high sounding words, and I like to keep my sentences short so that people understand what I'm saying. So that's my style.
And also, I think you don't repeat yourself very often. I feel like compared with a lot of other Bhutanese writers, it's you say it once, you say it clearly, and you move on. And
Yes.
that must have been also the.
That's also because of the
3
column,
word
yeah.
limit.
Because I had to cut down
Yeah.
all the repetitive sentences, and also I used to use a particular word to convey what actually takes about 3-4 words to convey. So I was very particular about that. So that, I think, became a part of me. Now I actually find it difficult writing longer.
Yeah, because
stories.
your next book is going to be a novel rather than. Can you talk a little bit about the novel and what it was like to move from these shorter pieces to
yes.
something longer?
So once that I completed the story, short story, the book, 1,000 pieces, then I said I should try something different. And that happened during the second lockdown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 40-day lockdown.
Yes, yeah.
And for most part of it, for about 35 days, I was alone at home, all alone at home.
Oh.
So then I said, okay, I'll start with the crime fiction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I started typing, and I couldn't get past the first page because I realized that I don't have much background. I haven't done research on how things worked in a crime scene or how the investigation goes on. Then I said, this is not for me. So then I shifted to romantic fictional novel, and then I found that I could write it. But initially I found it very difficult because I was still in that short story mode, and I was trying to keep everything short without much description. But after the first chapter, then I was able to move on. And then where I thought that maybe I have not said much, then I could come back and again write. So actually, and one very difficult aspect of it was actually when you're describing the characters. Then you forget how you have described someone in the first chapter or second. So it was quite difficult with the continuity. Then I had to check online how writers do that, and they keep notes and they develop the character. So that was how actually I went along, and then finally once I got used to it, it was quite. The flow was quite smooth, and the first draft was actually finished in about 18 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed is that in your book you have a few fictional pieces towards the end, part 4, and they're also very short, so unlike your novel. But what I notice is that your fiction has a very different style from your personal essays. Your personal essays tend to be very tongue-in-cheek and teasing and joking, but your fiction is a little bit more heavy, a little bit more serious, a little bit more melancholy. Is your novel...
yes, actually...
Is it a sad love story?
Yes, it's actually a sad love story. And I would say that the inspiration is actually from Love Story by Eric Segal.
Oh, okay, yes, of course,
so
classic.
It's going to be more like a Buddhist version of that.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it would actually relate to the young people around because, but I've kept the cultural aspects of that, the how life, the village life, or everything actually, those things are all mentioned there. So it will be a simple love story, but I heard that normally it's not the theme but the way it's told.
Yes, of
so
course.
I think I have told it in a very different way, with a lot of emotions there, with also humor and also satire. So of course it's a tragic love story, but then there are lighter parts to that, and I think it will relate to the young Bhutanese.
So you were saying that your next book will be a novel, but then the book after that is also almost written, you were saying?
Yes, it's halfway through. It's also, again, short stories, the things that I have missed from 1,000 in 1,000 footprints. So when I finished 1,000 footprints, then I realized that there are a lot of other stories left, the ones I had forgotten. And once 1,000 footprints went out into the market, and my friends messaged me, "Oh, you have not mentioned that story. Don't you remember?" I had actually forgotten a lot of stories. Now, when they mention it, then I say, yes, I remember that. And then now, I think I finished about 20 more short stories for the third book.
And is the book having the same sort of sections. You had childhood, Sherapsi, working, and then
Yes, actually, in 1,000 Footprints, I think most of the chapters went to Sherapsi.
yes, that's
Yeah,
true.
because those were the recent ones.
Yeah.
But now in the third book, I realized that there are more stories from my childhood days,
Okay,
from the
okay.
village days,
Yeah.
from my time, two years in Punakha High
Yeah,
School,
yeah.
and also in Lungtan Zampa High School. So last time when I counted the stories, there were quite a lot from Punakha and Punakha days,
Yeah,
actually, from
yeah.
my childhood when
Yeah.
I was like, what, 12?
Yeah.
11, 12 years old.
Yeah. And it sounds like you feel that childhood has changed a lot in the last generation.
It has, because of, I think, definitely internet,
Internet.
yeah, mobile, television,
Mm-hmm.
and even because maybe now the parents are educated,
Mm-hmm.
and in our times, most of the students who came to school, their parents were farmers.
Yeah.
So that way, I think childhood has changed,
Yeah.
and there's more. I mean, not, I wouldn't say care, but there's a lot of
Attention.
from the parents.
Yeah.
So that's because of that. I think the space that the child had
Yeah.
has also changed.
Yeah.
For me, for us, those days, the whole day, 24 hours, you could be away,
Yeah.
but your parents wouldn't know. You
Yeah.
came back in the
Yeah.
evening,
Yeah.
and that was the time. Then you had your dinner
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
but there wouldn't be much concern. But
Yeah.
today, you have to be concerned about a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be the drugs.
Yes.
There's crime rate
Yeah.
which is increasing. You have to worry about your children actually spending too many hours in front of the television.
Yes, yes.
So there are a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
I think that has changed actually the child too.
Yeah. So, what other important changes have you noticed in Bhutan besides this shift in what childhoods are like?
Well, I think there are a lot of changes going on around every minute, every second. We can't avoid that.
Yes.
And because of the advancement in technology, maybe in change of other things. But one thing I would say, again, related with humor,
Yeah.
is that during our time, when it was time for example, Lomba,
Yeah.
then we would make sure we had a friend from Ha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and when it was time to distribute shell rotis, we would make sure we had some friends from the south.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to have a taste of
Yeah.
that, and that was something that happened every year.
Yes.
And
yeah.
we made sure that at least a week or two ahead, you are nice to the friends from those
Yeah.
districts. But now, hente and shell rotis, and among other things, those are all available in the restaurants.
Yes,
You
yeah.
can just go and buy
Yeah.
a plate or two.
Yeah.
You don't have to be nice to the
Anyone,
people.
yeah.
Anyone. You
Yeah.
just have to have the money. So I thought that unseen part of our culture is getting
Yeah,
lost.
yeah.
And people say, okay,
Yeah.
why do you have to be, why do you have to worry before Lomba?
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
can just go and buy. But I think it's not the thing that is just lost,
Yes.
the hente and the Lomba.
Yeah.
It's more the cultural aspect of
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And these are things I think is happening in many other
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
And these are things that are changing.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to also ask a little bit about both in this interview, and then I've also seen on Facebook and even in your launch, you acknowledge your editor quite a lot and your illustrator. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how they were involved in the book and
Oh, well.
how these relationships came to
Yeah,
be.
okay. The illustrator, I'll talk about the illustrator
Yeah.
first, Chami.
Yeah.
Chami Cheda,
Yeah.
a very good friend.
Okay.
We came to know each other through work actually.
Okay.
When I was working in the BBS, so she was with Rapa,
Okay. Yes.
and we were Facebook friends.
Yeah.
So I think she must have been reading my stories whenever I
Okay, when
posted
you
on
were,
Facebook.
during the lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, when I said, "Oh, I'm going to publish this
Yeah.
stories," she said, "Oh, I'll do the illustrations."
Oh. So she offered.
Yeah, actually, that was after I left BBS.
Okay.
And I was without a job. So I said, Chami, I can't afford you.
Yeah,
No, because you are talking about at least 30, 40, 50 illustrations.
Yeah.
So she's saying, no, I want to do it for free.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, Chami, you have read the stories. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Actually, we planned to do, she wanted to do an illustration for every story.
Yeah.
So that would have been 51.
Yeah.
But because she was also engaged
Yeah.
in many other
Very
works. So
busy
yeah,
person,
so
yeah.
I think we did about 10 or 11
Yeah,
illustrations.
yeah.
So she volunteered.
Okay.
So I'm very thankful to her.
Yeah.
Actually, she came forward, and that was at the time when I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And I was also short of money.
Yeah.
So I thought I could never
Yeah, that's-
afford.
It's very generous. Which of the illustrations is your favorite? Maybe we can.
Actually, I think it's the first one.
The first one.
Yeah, because actually, some of her illustration, that illustration actually, actually talks more than the story itself, I think.
this one here.
Yeah. Because she was saying that, when some people, just after looking at the illustration, they said, "Oh, we know the story." So I think it speaks actually more than the words even.
Yeah, and I think she really kind of captures both the dangers and the pleasures.
Yes,
you know,
yes. So that I think that's my favorite actually from the illustrations.
Of the illustrations too.
And actually, she's also going to be doing the cover design for my second book.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, so
we have already discussed it.
Oh wow! So this is an ongoing sort of literary.
Yeah. She's saying
relationship.
anytime.
Yeah.
When you need illustration works to be done, I can always tell her.
Yeah.
So, but there'll be only one illustration in the second book, the cover page.
Yeah.
I asked Kinga T. Doji Soup
Yeah.
to be the editor.
Yeah.
And he was very happy because we are on Facebook together, friends and he must have read few stories.
Yeah.
So he was, I think, the ideal editor because we spent 4 years together in Sheraptse.
Okay, so he has that.
Yeah,
shared
so out of those
experience.
16 stories from Sheraptse, he was also actually on some certain stories he had more info.
Oh really?
Yeah,
oh, that's
more
nice.
info than, and we could actually relate.
Yeah.
And the story where I was writing about singing Tears in Heaven, Eric
Yes,
Clapton's.
yes.
Yeah, he was one of the guitarists there.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then when we went around singing Daushure,
Yeah,
because
he
we
was
didn't
there.
have money,
Yeah.
he was there.
Okay.
So we shared a lot of experiences, and it was actually good because we could pen them down together, what experiences that we shared, and he was able to add to the stories more to make it more humorous, more information. So Kinga also, and he also said that when I bring out my third book, he would be there to edit, and he was saying it was fun to actually edit the book, and of course he gave me a big discount. So that was a very good gesture from Kinga.
Yeah, but I think a lot of Bhutanese authors don't necessarily use editors. What's your take on that?
I think the main reason is, of course, the cost. But I would say you can't write a book without an editor. I thought the stories I'd written were like flawless.
Yeah.
But when Kinga took them home and sent them back, I realized I'd missed a lot of. I mean, there were typos. The sentences were much. Better, and there was more info, and even the perspective, because the editor Kunga, he looked at it from the biggest framework, whereas I sometimes tend to miss that.
Yeah, I think as an author you're very inside the story. So.
And there were parts where I was mentioning Palas, and my introduction of Palas actually came in the later story, and he said it's better to put it in the front because you're introducing it. So those are things that you cannot miss. I think an editor is an inevitable part of your writing process. If you're writing without an editor, I think there'll be flaws, and definitely the book will not, your publication will not be as good, I feel. And it's very important to choose a very good writer and someone who understands you.
Yes.
Because he keeps your voice there without, he edits it without actually disrupting your voice in the writings.
Yeah, and definitely I think your voice is very strong. It's a very storyteller voice. I wanted to ask, just from your own perspective as someone who's an author now and then also been involved in the media so long, what's your take on the reading culture in Bhutan?
I think the reading culture has gone down. What has changed since my days? Because when we were in school, we would say, "Oh, I'm going to read all the books in the library this year."
Nice.
And then we would
But
start.
the libraries were smaller then also, no?
Smaller then, but in Riyang Books High School, we had quite a big library,
really? Okay.
and we had a huge collection.
Okay.
So we used to start. We would decide where to start. Then we would start with maybe Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Famous Five, Secret Seven, Mills and Boons, J.T. Edson, Louis, everything. And I would say we actually read everything
in the library,
those things. So we are reading like 2 books, maybe 1 book in 2 days, or maybe 2-3 books a week. And that continued actually. And in college, I did not read so much, but after leaving college, then again, I picked up on reading. So that I think is going down because the children nowadays, they have a lot of other engagements. It's not just books. For us, it was books. And maybe outdoor games. But now, a lot of children tend to be on maybe TikTok or Facebook, online platforms, or they have other engagements because now. So I think reading culture has gone down. And as a writer, when I as a writer, this is just my first book, but my experience is that after I published the book and put it up on sale, some buyers actually buy it on face value. Meaning, if they know me,
okay.
okay, this is his book, so I'll buy it. Some buy books on sympathetic, grounds. Okay, this is a young student, or maybe no, and just buy it as because it will help the student get past. But I think readers should be serious enough to buy it based on the value of the book. What's the content? Only then I think the writing culture and the writing culture will, I think, improve, develop in the future. Because sometimes people might say, oh, the writer, he's quite a well-to-do man. No, he doesn't need me to buy his book. So you buy a book to read. Not for other reasons.
And you feel that isn't there yet.
So I feel that is not there totally. Maybe I would say about 30% of the buyers would buy based on sympathetic grounds, just to help someone out, whereas that book may not actually be well written and written without an editor, a lot of typos. But that is actually not even good for the writer himself, because he would not have the grounds to improve. And a lot of people will write just for the sake of getting a little bit of money, and that may hamper, and that will be an issue in the future. Where the serious writer will say, oh, I've written 5 books, then there will be another one saying, I've written 5, but maybe not worth reading.
Not comparable.
Not comparable, and that would be that might create a vacuum in the future.
So one other thing I noticed that is a very important theme in your book is your love for sports. I think especially in the Sherepsi side, we get some quite intense competitions. So do you want to talk a little bit about why that was important to include in the book?
Because it's all memoirs. So as I was saying, my mind was always outside the classroom. So even as a small boy, when I was studying in Lungten Zampa or Punakha High School, I used to spend a lot of times outside. Those days we were playing marbles, and we were playing with this game called Seven Stones.
The one where you throw up and catch? Or
it was different. We just needed, and we used to fill old socks with a lot of cloth pieces, and then we used to play that as a football in the corridors. So I was always interested in sport, and I found out that I could pick up anything, any sport. So
sort of a natural aptitude.
I had that natural thing for sports, and in YHS in Riyang Thimphu, I was in the basketball team. I was there playing football, but I was not in the team that time. But when I reached Sherepsi, then over the 5 years, actually I was in every discipline.
Every team.
I was in the college team in every discipline. So basketball, soccer, archery, table tennis, and I was also in the marks dance. I was also in the marks dance. Then after leaving college, then actually I played for a year in the national football team.
Oh really?
But then those days it was not enough to actually make a living.
No, I think
so I was already engaged in so there was no time for practice, but I played for a year in the national team. And then in 1999, I played basketball in His Majesty's team.
Oh, wow.
And we won the tournament.
I think there's a story about that.
Yeah, there's a story about that. And even the football,
yes,
I think.
there's a story,
So it was in 1991 when I came to Thimphu from college for the National Football League and also the archery tournament.
And that was the same year.
It was the same year, 91. And then I went back to college. The table tennis coordinator said whether I can go to Thimphu to play table tennis. And the tennis coordinator said whether I could go. So I would have actually come to Thimphu 4 times that year.
And it was still a long trip. It was 2-3 days.
It would be 2 to 3 days. So I didn't come for the table tennis and the tennis. Then after college, I picked up, I started playing a little bit of cricket and also then golf.
That's also
now I've been playing golf for the last 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Actually, won 3 major tournaments.
Oh, wow. So many accomplishments.
So sports, I've been my aptitude for sports has been quite strong. And I found that I had the physique and the coordination, my body coordination to take up sports. But I couldn't actually focus on just a single one.
Yeah.
So I just play it as a pastime.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
not for any other reason.
Yeah.
And to keep myself healthy. Then I also took up cycling.
Okay.
Yeah, so I cycle quite a lot, and I'm intending to start again from March this year. So
when it
for my
warms up,
fitness,
yeah.
yes. So I've been actually quite lucky
Yeah.
that I could actually pick up a sport and actually do better than the average, average Booknese in sports.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk about your book and your life, and also your thoughts on reading and writing. We're really grateful, and we're looking very much forward to the next 3 or 4 books which are already in the pipeline.
Thank you, Dolma. Thank you very much for this time and space today. And I also definitely like to thank everyone in Bhutan Echoes for giving me the platform. Because when I was thinking of publishing it, I just thought I'd release it into the market and forget about it.
Yeah.
But I think Bhutan Echoes has given me that platform, and it has had a wider reach. And I feel a little hesitant to call myself an author just now because of one book.
It's official.
But I'll definitely like to write a book, write at least about 5 books.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I think people may be able to see what kind of an author I am.
Yes.
Because just now I'm not very sure what kind of an author I am. And of course, there's always the fear that will that book be accepted. But I'll continue writing. And definitely, I'll come to Bhutan Echoes whenever. Because I need that platform. I think every writer needs that platform, the local writers. And I hope you all continue to do the good work you all are doing. And I would also, not just as a writer, but I would maybe in the future also like to participate in the various events that Bhutan Echoes,
we would
so
welcome that.
So that we can talk to more the young people, or maybe in any other way. So as a writer, I'll definitely be there.
Thank you for your support. We look forward to it.
Thank you.